Mike is standing inside an empty house at 11 o'clock at night, phone calculator open, running the same numbers for the fourth time, hoping the answer changes. It doesn't. 3 years of being a landlord, 3 years of tenant calls, repair bills, missed weekends, and mental energy he can't get back. And the number staring back at him from that screen? Less than $2,000 in actual profit, not per month. Total. Over 3 years, he owns a house, he has a tenant, he tells people at work he's a real estate investor, and somehow, after all of it, he has made less than $2,000. Meanwhile, Derek, his college roommate, same age, same salary, same city, put his money into index funds, set up an automatic transfer, and forgot about it. Derek has never taken a call at midnight about a broken pipe, and Derek has never sat in an empty house at 11 p.m. recalculating numbers and feeling the quiet weight of a decision that might have been wrong. Derek's portfolio just crossed $78,000. If this is the kind of honest financial content you've been looking for, subscribe right now before we go any further. What's coming next is the part most finance channels skip entirely. Mike and Derek are 29 years old, same city, same salary, right around $58,000 a year. Over 5 years, both of them saved $50,000. Same starting line, same amount of money. The only difference is what they decide to do with it. Mike has always been afraid of the stock market. His father lost money in 2008 and never let Mike forget it. And that fear lives in Mike's chest like a fact, even though he's never stopped to examine whether it's actually true or just inherited pain wearing the clothes of wisdom. Derek watched his aunt build quiet wealth through index funds over 20 years. When Derek asked her how she retired comfortably without ever earning a six-figure salary, she showed him a single number on a piece of paper. That number changed the way Derek thought about money permanently. So when both of them have $50,000 and the question becomes what to do with it, their answers go in completely opposite directions. And both of them believe with total sincerity that they are making the smarter choice. Mike buys a house, a $260,000 three-bedroom property, $50,000 down, 30-year mortgage at 7% interest. Monthly payment, $1,395. He finds a tenant willing to pay $1,850 a month. On paper, that's $455 every month in profit. Mike does the math on a napkin, and the napkin tells him he's winning. He drives past the property on his lunch break and thinks, I own that. There's a key in his pocket. There's a check hitting his account on the first of every month. Everything about it feels real and solid and smart. Derek, the same week, transfers $50,000 into a total stock market index fund and sets up a $320 monthly automatic contribution. Nobody at Derek's job asks him about it. Nobody is impressed. His money just sits there, quietly growing at roughly 10% a year. By the end of year one, Mike has collected $22,200 in rent. His mortgage payments total $16,740. That's $5,460 in gross cash flow. And Mike feels like a genius. Derek's portfolio has grown to approximately $56,000. He feels nothing in particular about it. This is where the story gets honest. November, year one. Mike's tenant calls at 7:43 a.m. The water heater is out. Replacement costs $1,300. Mike pays it and tells himself, this is just part of the game. February, year two. A roof leak. Repair bill, $3,100. Mike puts it on his credit card because his emergency fund is thinner than he expected. Then the tenant starts paying late, first by 3 days, then by 10. Then 1 month, the rent doesn't come at all. Mike spends 3 weeks in a situation he has no framework for, too uncomfortable to be aggressive, too financially stressed to be patient. He is now taking calls during work meetings, coordinating contractors on his lunch break, lying awake, calculating whether he is actually ahead. And here is what the napkin math was missing. Property taxes, $3,200 a year. Insurance, $1,600 a year. Water heater, $1,300. Roof repair, $3,100. 1 month of vacancy plus cleaning, repairs, and relisting, $2,500. And then there is his own time. Evenings, weekends, the mental space this property occupies, even when nothing is actively wrong. Which Mike has never counted, because counting it would force him to see something he's not ready to see yet. After 3 years of collecting rent, paying a mortgage, and absorbing every real cost, Mike's actual net cash flow is somewhere between $1,500 and $3,500, not per year. Total. Over 3 years, this is the moment we opened on. Mike, in that empty house at 11 p.m., running numbers that don't add up the way he thought they would. The young couple just moved out, leaving behind a damaged bathroom, scuffed walls, and a back bedroom that smells like a dog they never disclosed. Mike has $2,500 more in repairs ahead of him, a full mortgage payment due in 18 days, and roughly $2,000 in net profit to show for 3 years of work. He puts his phone in his pocket. He stands there. He says nothing for a long time. Derek, at this exact same moment, has a portfolio sitting at $78,000. He contributed $50,000 up front, plus $11,520 in monthly additions. Compound growth did the rest. No calls, no repairs, no empty rooms, no late-night calculations. He logs into his account once a quarter, sees the number, closes the app, and goes back to whatever he was doing. If you're finding this video valuable, hit that subscribe button right now. There are people sitting on $50,000 right now making this exact decision without the full picture. Share this with them. It might be the most useful thing you do for someone today. By year 5, Mike has a better tenant, pays on time, no drama. He exhales for the first time in years. He raises rent to $1,975 and starts thinking about a second property. Then the roof needs full replacement, $9,000, arriving in the same year he had planned everything else. He doesn't take the vacation he'd been planning. And this is the moment Mike finally understands something the napkin math never showed him. Roofs last 20 to 25 years. Furnaces last 15 to 20. Water heaters last 10 to 12. These are not surprise costs. They are guaranteed future costs arriving in large, unavoidable chunks. And if you're not setting money aside every month specifically for these, you're not running an investment. You're running on luck. And luck always presents the bill eventually. His real cash-on-cash return after all expenses is hovering around 3 to 5%. Not the 15 to 20% that gets thrown around at real estate meetups. The real number? After everything. Derek, year 7, screenshots his portfolio balance, approximately $148,000, and sends it to Mike with no caption. Mike stares at the screenshot. Then he pulls up his own numbers. Property, worth around $310,000. Mortgage balance around $195,000. Equity, roughly $115,000. Mike is still ahead, but Derek's number required nothing except patience and a standing automatic transfer. Mike's number required 5 years of repairs, tenant management, lost weekends, and a $9,000 roof. The gap between those two paths is not just financial, it's personal. Now, here is what most content gets wrong. They pick a side. We're not doing that. Here is what real estate genuinely offers that index funds cannot match. Leverage. Mike used $50,000 to control a $260,000 asset. Derek used $50,000 to control $50,000. That 5-to-1 leverage means every dollar of property appreciation is building equity on a fraction of the original investment. That is genuinely powerful arithmetic. And in a rising market, it is the single biggest wealth-building advantage real estate has. There is also the depreciation deduction, a legal tax shelter that lets Mike deduct the theoretical decline of his building's value from his taxable income, even while the property is actually appreciating. Derek has no equivalent. Index funds don't come with depreciation. And there's something else. You cannot panic sell a house at 2 a.m. on your phone. When the market drops 30% and fear takes over, Derek could sell everything in 11 seconds. Mike physically cannot make that mistake. That behavioral guardrail has real financial value that almost nobody accounts for. Now, here is what index funds genuinely offer that real estate can't match: full liquidity. If Derek needed $30,000 tomorrow, he could access it within days. Mike's wealth is locked inside a physical asset that takes months to sell and costs roughly 6% in transaction fees to exit. His equity is real and completely inaccessible without selling or borrowing against it. Zero concentration risk. Derek owns a slice of thousands of companies across every sector. Mike owns one house in one neighborhood, in one zip code. If that area declines, his entire investment declines with it, and compound growth that accelerates over time. The longer Derek leaves his money untouched, the faster it grows, because gains generate gains that generate more gains. By year 7, the growth on his existing balance is larger than his monthly contributions. The machine is running itself. But here is the part this video will not pretend away. Volatility is real. In 2008, the market dropped 37%. In March 2020, it fell 34% in weeks. If Derek had $148,000 and watched it become $93,000 in a month, that is not a number on a screen. That is a specific kind of dread that makes people do things they know are financially irrational. Selling at the bottom, waiting on the sidelines, buying back in after the recovery at higher prices, locking in losses at the worst possible moment. Derek has never been tested this way. We don't know yet what he would do. And one more honest thing this video needs to say. If you are carrying high interest debt right now, if you don't have a basic emergency fund, if your income is not stable, neither of these strategies is your next move. Both real estate and index fund investing assume a financial floor that not everyone is standing on. Building that floor first is not a detour. It is the actual route. By year 10, the scoreboard is this. Mike's property is worth approximately $350,000. Mortgage balance around $170,000. Equity, roughly $180,000. He has also spent somewhere between 400 and 600 hours managing this property over a decade. Phone calls, repairs, showings, paperwork, late-night calculations. Derek's portfolio sits at approximately $178,000. He contributed $88,400 total. Everything above that is pure compound growth. 0 hours managing it, 0 weekends lost to it. Nearly identical net worth. Completely different costs to get there. Mike calls Derek that evening, not to compare numbers, to understand for the first time without any defensiveness how Derek's investment actually works. Derek explains it in 4 sentences, and Mike sits with the simplicity of those 4 sentences and feels something quiet and uncomfortable settle in his chest. He spent 10 years managing complexity that Derek never had to create. He made that choice because of something his father handed him, a fear that felt like wisdom, but was actually just the pain that never got examined. His equity is real. His lessons are real. But the decision was never fully his own. It was borrowed from someone else's 2008. That realization, quiet, arriving 10 years late, is the most important financial moment of Mike's life. Not because it tells him he was wrong, but because it's the first time he has made a financial decision based on his own honest math instead of someone else's inherited fear. Mike doesn't sell the property. The equity is strong and the tenant is reliable. But he opens an index fund account the following week and sets up a $300 monthly contribution. He decides the property and the portfolio can coexist. He just has to choose with his eyes open. Which is the one thing he didn't do at the beginning. Derek keeps doing exactly what he's always done. Nothing. Quietly, patiently, profitably. Nothing. By year 20, a Mike's property is worth between $465,000 and $510,000. Mortgage nearly paid off. Equity between $410,000 and $500,000. Net cash flow profit above all expenses over 20 years. Somewhere between $45,000 and $85,000 total. Derek's portfolio has grown to approximately $430,000 to $470,000. He contributed $127,000 over 20 years. The remaining $300,000 plus is pure compounding. No debt, no tenants, no capital expenditures. Net worth after 20 years, nearly identical. Somewhere between $410,000 and $500,000 each. One of them worked for his. One of them waited for his. The question was never stocks versus real estate. That framing is the trap. The real question has always been, which investment fits the life you actually want to live, the time you actually have, the risk you can honestly sustain, and the math that includes everything, not just the part that sounds good on a napkin? Mike eventually gets there. Not to a fantasy number, not to early retirement. He gets to clarity. The specific kind of clarity that only comes from running the full numbers, all of them, and making a decision that is actually his own. Derek gets there too. Quietly. Without a story to tell. Without a key in his pocket. Without ever standing in an empty house at 11 p.m., wondering where the profit went. They both build real wealth. They just paid completely different prices to reach the same destination. The answer that includes everything is the only answer that matters. If this video helped you see something differently, share it with someone who is sitting on money right now, trying to figure out what to do next. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications.